In Vietnam, in a war zone type of thing, there is only one modus operandi, and it's called survival. Whether you were a ground troop or whether you're on a ship like I was, or a Navy vessel or whatever, the modus operandi was to make the other person die for his country. So there wasn't a whole lot of time for love and affection and all that other good stuff. Also, the amount of drug use by the troops in Vietnam was just unbelievable. Created some areas where people thought that they were supermen and found out that they weren't, and it cost them their lives. That in and of itself was probably the most impactful thing in Vietnam. Is pure survival. Okay? You didn't know walking down the street or walking down the dock if that Vietnamese person was Viet Cong or not. Didn't know whether they were going to pull out a gun and shoot you or not. You just didn't know. Hey, my name is Spielmann. I'm 70 years old. Started at the United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. Came out as an ensign in 1973 and retired as a Navy commander in 1995. Well, it was kind of interesting because a part of the curriculum at Kings Point is you go to sea for a year on a merchant ship. And the merchant ship that I was on was a U.S. Lines vessel called the Pioneer Commander. It was a Challenger 1 7-hatch cargo ship. And we went to Sunny Point, North Carolina to load ammunition to take to Vietnam, both at Da Nang and Cam Ranh Bay. So as a cadet on board type of thing was quite an interesting learning opportunity, shall we say, to go to Vietnam in a war zone, if you will, on probably the largest firecracker that you can imagine at almost 700 feet long. And while we were over there, the ship in and of itself was constantly being guarded with percussion grenades and Marines around the ship, etc. And you got to know some of the people and what was going on in Vietnam at the time. I'm sorry to say, once I came home, the reception from some of my neighbors was less than Christian. I got called all sorts of names like baby killer, and people didn't want to talk to me, and you were afraid to wear your uniform any place type of thing for some of the the words and stuff that were being said. In Vietnam, it was an interesting scenario because you really didn't know who your enemy was. Your enemy could be an 8-year-old kid with percussion grenades and grenades across his chest walking towards the ship. And, they weren't, the Viet Cong from the north, yes, they were in uniforms, but the other people weren't. Okay? It was kind of the first look at more of a terroristic type of engagement. And that was somewhat disconcerting. Because, you always said, you'll be fighting like the Second World War, the Germans, the Russians, the Americans, the British, etc. Well, that wasn't the case. And my humble opinion, Vietnam was an economic war. Saw many people that fought for the same ground time after time after time after time again. But every time you did that, somebody else died. And the greatest thing that I had as a Vietnam vet was when they made the wall in Washington. We finally got our due, so to speak, which to me was incredibly important.